Chapter 3, A Very Unusual Legal Consultation. It's clear, Victoria. That guy wants to fuck you, Harriet said as if she was giving her professional opinion on a subject she was an expert on. Do not be an idiot, Harriet. If he only wanted to fuck her, he would have demanded sex the same night that she went to his office and would not have taken so much trouble with all this marriage matter. Also, do not you think it's a very high price for get laid? Replied Nancy Scarrett with some impatience. Well, maybe he want to have her as his sex slave, or maybe it's a case like 50 Shades of Grey, a billionaire disturbed and a bit sexually perverted, but vulnerable, obsessed with a girl with no money, a modern version and dark of Cinderella, answered Harriet confidently. The difference is that Christian Grey fell in love with Anastasia before he wanted to marry her. This guy does not even know Victoria, he's barely seen her a pair of times, Nancy said. Well, that's true. I do not think a handsome man and also with money can fall in love with Victoria after seeing her a pair of times, Harriet replied thoughtfully. Thanks, Harriet. Girls, why, instead of arguing, do not we do what we have come to do? Victoria protested impatiently. You're right, Vicky. Let's see, Nancy said. The girls were in Nancy's house in her bedroom. Nancy opened her computer while Victoria and Harriet watched the screen. William Mayborn, said Harriet, typing the name in a search engine, and immediately appeared thousands of results. Wow! She added when she saw the images of William. It's him. That guy is very hot. Harriet exclaimed. In person, is he so handsome, Vicky? She added, questioning Victoria. I do not know it, Harriet. The first time I was very distressed at what I had just happened to Kate, and the second time I was too shocked and disgusted by his unusual proposal of marriage. The last thing I noticed was in his physical appearance, Victoria replied with annoyance and reluctance, even though she knew she was partially lying. Come on, Vicky. You expect us to believe you did not notice him? Replied Harriet wryly. He's very handsome, he's too hot to be a man who at least doubles my age, Victoria replied with a little more sincerity. He's really hot. Continued Harriet while seeing some images of him in some beach of the world sporting a muscled and well-worked torso. I would fuck it to him. She exclaimed. You would fuck Mr. Pierce, the fat old man who was our math teacher in high school. Nancy said mockingly. Do not be stupid, Nancy. Well, maybe with a lot of beers on it. Harriet said with mockery and irony. Girls, please. Let's focus on my crazy stalker, Victoria protested impatiently. You're right, Vicky. Let's see. Wow. Are you watching this? Said Nancy pointing to the screen, where the headline of an article housed in a media site. Here says that he is the 5th richest person in the United Kingdom and has a fortune of almost 12,000 million of pounds sterling. 12 billion pounds. Fuck him, Vicky, fuck him. Cried Harriet. Shut up, Harriet. Victoria replied, disgusted and disconcerted. He owns a powerful corporation with investments in different industries. Look at these articles. The guy relates to the most famous, rich, and powerful people in the world, Nancy said. For a long time the girls were reviewing several articles about William, more and more impressed with what they saw. The guy in the past has dated very hot women, even models of Victoria's Secret. Why the hell does he want to marry Vicky? Harriet said in astonishment. Hey, thank you very much, exclaimed Victoria, wounded in her pride. Well, Vicky, it must be recognized that a man who can have almost any woman in the world and who has been a lover of some of the most desirable women, even the hottest top models, is very rare that he notice a woman like you or us. We are not at the level of a man like this, we play in another league, Nancy said thoughtfully. I know, I am not so dumb and much less vain. I know that I am not competition for a perfect body goddess, I would like to have the body of one of those models. But for that very reason I do not understand anything, I do not know what is proposed that man, Victoria said, worried and confused. Maybe that may explain his insanity. Click there, Harriet said, pointing to a link to a story. Nancy clicked on the link, and the three girls gestured in surprise their faces. "Oh my God!" exclaimed Nancy, with surprise, horror, and compassion. After reading the news and discussing it for a long time, until they was exhausted, Victoria felt more confused than ever. "Of course, that explains everything. The man went crazy after that," Harriet said, as if she had solved a great mystery. "In that case, it's not his fault." "Poor man," Nancy replied with pity. "No one deserves to suffer such a great pain." "Life sucks at times," said Victoria, shocked and sad. "Do you really feel compassion for him, Vicky?" Nancy asked, sympathetic to her kind friend. "Of course, Nancy. I feel compassion for anyone who has suffered such a tragedy. I also suffered a tragedy with my father, and I could suffer it soon with my mother, remember?" Victoria answered, touched, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, honey. I know what you have had to endure," said Nancy, tightening affectionately her friend's hand. "But back to the subject, maybe Harriet is right. We cannot rule out that this tragedy has driven man to madness, and all this nonsense is the product of a disturbed mind, and of course that worries me about you, my sweetie," she added. "If you marry him, you'll have to sleep with a knife under the pillow," Harriet said. "Harriet!" Nancy cried reproachfully. "Now, seriously, we must consider the possibility that he is disturbed, and consider if him represents a danger for you," added Nancy, addressing Victoria. "Not to be repeated, the case of Pistorius," cried Harriet. "Harriet! Do not scare Vicky. Besides, this is serious," Nancy scolded. "You girls will think I'm crazy, but I have the intuition that deep down he's not a bad man. I do not know, I've known many bad people unfortunately, and this guy does not look bad. When I'm with him, no, I feel danger. I do not feel that my alarms awaken. On the contrary, even if it seems crazy, the pair times that I have been to his side I felt safe. I felt protected," Victoria said, reflecting aloud, verbalizing her confused and contradictory feelings. "Love at first sight, Vicky?" Harriet asked mischievously. "Do not be silly, Harriet," Victoria replied, but deep inside she had some doubt, because especially in her second encounter with him, she felt something strange that she could not define, and of just thinking of him felt something strange in the stomach. "I just say that him does not seem a bad man, or at least dangerous. That is something very different to say that I want to fuck him." "So, you imagined it out," Harriet said mockingly. "You are impossible," Victoria protested angrily. "Let's focus, girls. On the other hand, it's also possible that he is a sensitive man, broken by the pain of his tragedy. You say that he was moved with Kate," Shirley reminded his son. "Maybe he began to move with your sister, and your situation, and why not? Maybe you liked him, because he found in you qualities that he does not find in those spectacular women, qualities that can heal his wounds. Perhaps he admired your sensitivity and strength, I do not know. But of course, his intentions seem crazy and hasty, but that may be due to his trauma, I do not know," said Nancy. "I understand, Nancy, but for whatever reason it is very violent, absurd, and even frightening. If he would have invited me out at least a pair of times before proposing marriage me, but so. And besides, he practically buying me with money, as if I were a product of Harrods, with a barcode on my forehead," Victoria replied. "So you want to reject his proposal?" Nancy asked. "No, I did not say that," Victoria said. "Then you want to accept it?" asked Harriet. "I did not say that either. I do not know what to do, now less, after knowing this man's past, but also after confirming that he can fulfill all the promises he made to me, if I do marry with him," Victoria replied. "Victoria, honey, before you make the final decision we must take the next step. We must go to a lawyer like the William asked you. Are you sure that lawyer is legit, Harriet? Well, I think so, at least that my cousin was not so bad. And in any case, we do not have much to choose from, do we? Replied Harriet. That's true, Victoria said. The next day, the three girls were in the anteroom of the small, modest office of a lawyer, who, judging by the look of his office, should not have much money. After the previous client left the office, an old, scruffy-looking man, who was constantly sneezing, and passing them a lascivious glance at the three girls, causing Harriet to make a rude gesture with her finger, before Nancy held her hand, the girls entered the lawyer's office. The lawyer was a middle-aged man and a little fat, with an ugly frog face. A man who had sometimes been told that he had some resemblance to the portraits of a Victorian Prime Minister, Sir Robert Peel. "Good morning, ladies, my name is Robert Pearson," said the lawyer. After the corresponding presentations, the lawyer sat behind the desk and the girls sat across from him with the desk in the middle. "Then you're Harriet, Boy Bolton's cousin." "A complex case," said Robert. "No doubt clashing with a police patrol car, while he drove drugged is never an easy affair, is it?" replied Harriet. Victoria and Nancy turned to see Harriet with serious looks and some stupefaction. "And let's not forget the stolen items inside his car, anyway, at least we got the least condemnation possible." "Have you visited him in prison?" said Robert. "Yes, he has adapted beautifully to the prison," replied Harriet. "Good boy," Robert said, smiling. Victoria and Nancy exchanged glances of dismay. "Well, young ladies, what brings you here? A traffic accident, perhaps? Labor problems?" Robert asked kindly, but a little silly. "No," Nancy said. "Criminal charges? A paternity claim?" Robert asked stupidly. "No, we always use condoms," Harriet said, and seeing the disapproving glances of her friends, "I do it, is not it what to do?" Nancy shook her head as if denying it, and then Victoria took the documents out of her bag and placed them on the desk. "I think I should begin by telling you about my chance meeting with Lord William Mayborn," Victoria said earnestly. After a long discussion on the matter and with Robert very surprised studying the documents prepared by the legal team of William, the lawyer could not finish believing what they had told him. "So, this is all real, is not that a joke?" Robert asked, looking astonished. "Mr. Pearson, do you really think we would have taken so much trouble to play a joke on you? It's my life, the future of my family. I would not joke about it," Victoria replied, emotionally and a little angry. "Excuse me, Miss Walker, forgive me. But this is something you do not see every day. Lord William Mayborn is the 6th richest person in the UK," said Robert. "Actually it's the 5th, with a fortune of almost £12 billion, we've researched it on the internet," replied Nancy. "That's right. Besides, he is a member of the House of Lords, he belongs to one of England's oldest and most influential noble families, I even think he is a distant cousin to the Queen, a very distant cousin, but cousin at last. In any case, he is very close to the royal family, especially to Prince Charles and his sons," Robert explained. "My God, may you introduce me to Prince Harry, Vicky?" Harriet exclaimed, but stopped when Nancy elbowed him. "According to what these documents say, he promises to marry you, Miss Walker. Naturally, you can propose marriage to someone and then retract, and the law cannot force you to marry. But if you put that promise in writing, in a notarized document and you agree to pay monetary compensation to the person to whom you promised marriage in case of not fulfilling your promise within a period established in the document, that person can demand you payment of such compensation. In this case Lord William has promised to pay you £1 million if he retracts his promise and does not marry you," said Robert. "1 million?" cried Harriet. "Yes, he had mentioned it to me," Victoria said. You forgot to mention the amount, Vicky, Nancy told her. Yes, it's true, I'm sorry. And in case you were the one who did not want to get married, you would not have to pay him anything at all, for it's a one-sided promise, Robert went on to explain. But there's more. If the marriage is finally made, and Lord William divorces you for no apparent reason before the 5 years of marriage are completed, or if the marriage ends within that time period for any cause attributable to Lord William, he must pay you £5 million sterling. 5 million! Nancy and Harriet exclaimed in unison, while Victoria was silent and looked surprised. Yes, 5 million, of course, if the marriage would be terminated before the 5 years of the wedding, because you want to divorce him for no apparent reason or for a cause attributable to you, something like infidelity, in that case you would not get a cent, Robert continued. But there's more. After 5 years of marriage, if the marriage is terminated for any reason, for whatever reason, either because of you or because of him, and no matter who it have had the initiative to divorce, him or you, in any case, you will receive compensation of £75 million. 75 million! Exclaimed the 3 girls this time, including Victoria. Yes, £75 million tax-free, since any tax burden would be on his account, and that not including the eventual maintenance allowance that Lord William would have to pay to his minor children, if any, in case of divorce. That point would have to be negotiated separately, if that's the case, Robert said in the sufficiency tone that many lawyers use when talking to their clients. My God, 75 million! Why, I only find losers in my life! Exclaimed Harriet as a lament. That's what my previous 2 wives said Robert with innocent sincerity, causing Nancy and Harriet to see him a little astonished, while Victoria was absent, very shocked. But, besides, although Lord William will cover all living expenses of couple, and Victoria's personal expenses, including clothing and so on, he would still pay Victoria a sum of £10,000 a month for the duration of the marriage. And he's going to pay her a salary of £10,000 a month just for being his wife. I would not mind that he was 80 and horrible. And the worst of it is that he's hot as hell! Cried Harriet, as if she were about to cry out of frustration. Behave, Harriet! Nancy snapped, slapping her arm. Robert laughed a little, but then he turned serious again when he saw Victoria's serious, somber expression. Well, besides, you have to keep in mind that you would become Lady Mayborn with the wedding, and that if you both would have children. I imagine you young ladies know what happened to Lord William's son, since you have investigated. Robert said. The girls nodded. Well, your children would be the heirs to the UK's 5th largest fortune. And of course, I have no doubt that he would fulfill all the promises he made regarding your sister and your mother. I am convinced that they will be given custody of the little girl to you both of them once both are married. Robert stopped because he saw that Victoria had a bad face, that paled and sweated, and that she made gestures as if something hurt her. Miss Walker, are you all right? Robert asked worriedly. Vicky, honey, what's the matter? Nancy asked anguished as she stroked her hair. I feel bad. I cannot breathe. Victoria answered with difficult breathing. Vicky, do not scare me! Cried Harriet, standing up nervously. Quiet young ladies, I think her have a panic crisis. It has happened to me often, Robert said, standing up and taking a bag from which he took out a sandwich, and then handed it to Harriet. Have her breathe in the bag, so it will be taken away from her. I have a pill here and I'm looking for water. After a few minutes, Victoria regained her composure and they spoke to her in a relaxed manner. Thank you, Mr. Robert, will you be willing to accompany me and represent me in the negotiation for marriage? Victoria said in a serious and professional tone. Of course, replied Robert helpfully. Have you decided to get married, Vicky? Asked Harriet. I need to attend that meeting with my lawyer and go back and talk to him face to face to make my final decision, Victoria said. There's nothing more to talk about, and do not worry, as Harriet can tell you my fees are very reasonable, Robert said, starting to fill his draft fee with a pen. William told me he would pay my lawyer's fee, Victoria said. Seriously? Robert replied, and then discarded the original receipt to fill in another where he raised the amount of his fees to 5 times the original amount. Then, it's time to work, Miss Walker. Victoria contacted William and arranged a meeting to discuss marriage with their respective lawyers. The day and hour scheduled, Victoria in the company of Nancy and Harriet arrived at the Maybourne Tower, where Robert was to meet with them, after leaving a court hearing in the case of another client. Damn it, Harriet. I told you not to dress like a slut. We're not going to a bachelorette party in Benidorm. Nancy said to Harriet, looking critically at the short, low-cut dress, perhaps too provocative, of her friend. If I do not listen to my mother, you think I'm going to do it with you? If I listened to my mother I would still be a virgin, replied Harriet. And at what age you stopped being it? At 10. Nancy answered sarcastically. I'd rather be a slut than a frigid one like you, cried Harriet angrily. Enough. Please girls, already I'm nervous enough. Victoria rebuked them. You're right, Victoria. I'm sorry, said Nancy ashamed. Forgive me, Vicky, Harriet apologized. The girls approached the reception desk. Victoria was dressed in a vaporous, blue dress that reached a little below her knees, and she wore high-heeled sandals. She wore a gold chain with a crucifix on her neck and matching earrings, and a bracelet from her mother. Dressed in the most elegant way possible for her resources, but still looked simple and looked like a teenager girl who tried to look older. Nancy was dressed in a serious and austere manner, with a vaporous dress longer than Victoria's and dark green. Good morning, I'm Victoria Walker and I have a date, Victoria told one of the reception staff. The female clerk called and then told Victoria that someone would come and get them. While they waited, Robert arrived sweating and apologized for the minutes of delay. Then a more or less young man appeared. Good morning. I am Ernest Lambert, and I work for Lord William. Miss Victoria Walker, said the young man who wore a mustache. It's me, it's a pleasure. My lawyer Robert Pearson, and my friends. Victoria made the introductions, and when it was Harriet's turn she stared at Ernest intensely and held his hand a little more than due, so Nancy gave her a soft kick at the ankle to let him go, although he just smiled. Ernest accompanied the group to one of the upper floors and arranged them in a waiting room, where there were tea, soft drinks, and cookies. He'll soon be in the conference room, when Lord William finishes a video conference with Hong Kong. I hope everything is to your liking. If I can help you all with something else, is there anything else you want, ladies and gentlemen? Asked Ernest very kindly. To you, Harriet said with a mischievous smile, and both Victoria and Nancy elbowed and annoyed, but Ernest just laughed and winked at the girl. Ernest said goodbye, and he leaving. A pair of minutes later Robert excused himself with the girls and went to the bathroom. Victoria was tense, and Nancy and Harriet talked to her trying to relax her. And suddenly it was Nancy who tensed and gently touched Victoria in the arm to get her attention, and point to something that was behind Victoria. Victoria turned and saw William standing in a hallway, staring at her. Victoria's heart quickened, a shiver ran through her body and she felt weakness in her legs. For a moment she feared a new panic attack or even fainting. He smiled at her, with a kind, reassuring smile. William was dressed in an elegant and impeccable Hugo Boss costume, dark blue, and a striped tie matching the suit. He looked terribly handsome, as her friends would later say, like a male model in a fashion show in Paris, Milan, or London itself. When he began to walk towards her in a safe and elegant way, exuding manhood with every step, like a very hot stallion, in Harriet's words, Victoria felt that her heart was going to come out of her mouth and she had to gather her hands, so he would not notice her hands shaking. But how to hide the nerves that were surely reflected in the gesture of her face? Hello Victoria, how are you? William said with a smile, and she thought the time had frozen, and that there was nobody else in that room, only the two of them.